Hello, dear viewers. Today's guest is Democratic member-elect of the Illinois House of Representatives from 51st District, Nabila Said. Nabila, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
First of all, I would like to congratulate you from the deep of my heart for your great achievement. Would you please first introduce yourself?
Of course. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nabila Sayed. I am the state representative elect for the 51st House District in Illinois that is out here in the northwest suburbs. And upon my election, I will be the first Indian woman in the state legislature, the first Muslim woman in the state legislature, and the youngest woman in the current state legislature. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I would like to ask you, since this is a great success, great achievement, and we are very much proud of you, and all Illinois Muslim and maybe American Muslims are proud of you. What are the points and the items behind this success?
I would say a lot of hard work. Every single thing that we did, we wanted to do with intentionality. How we spent money, how we knocked on doors, the types of conversations we had. And I'm a very, very strong believer that if you have good intentions and pure intentions, that things will happen the way it should happen, or the way that God wants it to happen. So that's what we did. Even when we had conversations at the doors, this was a district that was meant to be won by a Republican. No one expected a Democrat to actually win this seat. So we went door to door. Pete and myself and people on our campaign team, I knocked on 20,000 doors.
Wow.
Our team knocked on 55,000 doors altogether.
Uh-huh.
And we just had those conversations. So people that maybe had never seen a Muslim woman wearing a hijab and never had talked to them before, they were willing to talk to me and have those conversations. And it was important for me to remember that this might have been the first time someone has ever interacted with someone who looks like me. So how can we make it as meaningful of an interaction as possible? And I think, that's what we did. So it came down to having the resources, but also having the enthusiasm of our campaign staff to knock on doors and to talk to people.
Oh, great. I believe there are lots of unforgettable moments and memories that you had during the campaign time. Can you name some of them?
Yes. So I remember this was early on when we launched. This was near October 9th, 2021 was when we launched. In early November, I was knocking on doors in a very friendly neighborhood. And this woman steps out and she starts talking to me. We start talking for 20 minutes and she starts the conversation by being like, "You look familiar. I feel like I've seen you somewhere." And then, we still couldn't pinpoint where exactly she met me. And then afterwards, I come home and there's $1,000 in our campaign account.
Wow.
Based off that one interaction, she went ahead and donated $1,000 on the spot. Once I got home, I was like 8 p.m. I was very tired. And then I gave her a call to thank her. And she's like, "Nabila, I know where I met you. When you were 15 years old, you hosted an interfaith open mosque day."
Wow.
So I was the host for the event that our masjid was putting on. And I was only 22 at the time. Now I'm 23. So to think something I did when I was 15 had that kind of impact on someone, that they talked to me for 20 minutes in the cold, and then they went ahead and donated $1,000 to the campaign. That was profound. And it meant a lot to me too, because we were just getting started. So to have that kind of confidence instilled in me from a community member it took me a long way, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's great, really. When did you decide to enter the politics? Is Trump a big issue for you?
Yeah, I think not even just what Trump, who Trump is, but what he represents is a big concern for me. So I was in high school. I was in my 12th year in high school when 12th grade in high school when Trump got elected. And the things that Trump said, the things that he used in his campaign rhetoric, talking about a Muslim ban. I decided to wear, by my own choice, a hijab starting 9th grade. So I grew up, went through high school wearing a hijab and I felt very comfortable in it. And then all of a sudden, 12th grade comes around and I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling unsafe because one guy is standing on national news talking about the Muslim ban and painting the Muslim community very negatively. And that's not the community I know. I know a very loving, a very giving, a very compassionate community. And I was like, man, if this guy is able to do all this, if he is able to instill hatred in people's hearts, if he is able to communicate a harmful message, and I do believe harmful messages lead to violence. It's like we have to counteract it. We can't just sit around and let this happen. And unfortunately, he did get elected to be president. And unfortunately, we've seen many people come about and support him and support candidates that talk and act like him. But for me, I was like, well, we have to just counteract that with good people on the other end. And I hadn't thought, I'll run for office. I thought I'd get involved in politics in some other way. And that's what I did. I, went to college. I majored in political science and business. And then I pursued a career that was nonpartisan in nature, but was politically related. It was related to voting rights. And then I managed some school board races. And then that's when my friend told me to run and we launched our campaign.
You got a great success at your age, 23. So inshallah, you have a great future in front of you. And what's your future prospects? Are you going to be the American president?
I don't know about that one. That seems a lot of work and a lot of stress. I wanna stay in this role until I feel like I've gotten some things done that I want to get done. And maybe my path is somewhere else. I'm a very strong believer in like things will happen. You have to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's path. That is truly what I say. And I don't know what the future holds, but right now I think at the state house level, there's a lot of important change that can be made, and it's doable here in Illinois. It's very doable. So I want to take advantage of that, and I want to try to do some things specifically focused on the senior community here. I think it's instilled in my culture and in my faith very heavily to take care of those that are older in the community. And I feel like there's sometimes a little bit missing from what the government does to support senior residents and take care of folks that might be a little bit more vulnerable due to their age or possible disabilities and things like that. So there's a lot of work that can be done, and inshallah, I will have the opportunity to get it done efficiently in the state house.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. When we come to Illinois, what are the issues that you are going to fight for?
Yeah, I think Illinois has made a significant progress. We are, I would say, they are an incredibly efficient legislature. They do a lot of good things, but there's still, there's of course still room for more good to come. Recently, they expand access to healthcare for folks that might not have documentation, and that overall decreases the costs on our healthcare system. So when we help uplift people and provide them with access to quality healthcare, we're helping everyone else by decreasing the costs on our system. And we see that come about in taxes and other ways that people pay into the system for us to generate revenue. So continuing to make healthcare more accessible. Our prescription drug system is incredibly flawed in the U.S., but it comes down to the state level. So making sure that people have access to life-saving drugs, they don't have to be holding out on getting their prescription because they can't afford it. And then even some work related to illnesses specific to like Alzheimer's and dementia, making sure that in folks that are in those that have those illnesses, that have those diseases, are able to access quality and compassionate care at an affordable cost. That's another thing that I feel very strongly about. My grandfather has Alzheimer's and dementia, and alhamdulillah, he has his family. We're taking care of him. He has his wife, my grandmother, but there are many people in the community that go by uncared for because people either don't diagnose them properly or they're not receiving the compassionate care that they should be while undergoing this very scary disease. So there are many things that I want to get started on, but a lot of those issues, surprisingly, for being the youngest woman in the state legislature, have to do with folks that are much older. But it's exciting nonetheless. I think those benefits will trickle down to everyone.
Yeah, great. As a Muslim young woman, what do you see the problems of Muslim Americans in United States?
That's a good question. I would say a lot of the problems overlap with a lot of the problems that other communities are facing. And you know, there is one aspect of, I would say, that I notice is a little bit more unique, and that's sometimes economic opportunity for small business owners in the Muslim community, because Arab Americans don't necessarily get designated as a minority group in some cases, but they face the challenges that minority groups face. And it's very interesting to see that even when Arab Americans are filling out their forms for FAFSA, when they're filling out their college application forms, sometimes there's not a designation for people and they're looped into being considered white, but the problems that they've faced are those of a minority group. They are considered a minority group. So sometimes I think those problems are especially relevant to a specific group in our Muslim community. I'll also make note that many Muslims in America are Black Americans, and the challenges that Black Americans face in America are significant. And when it comes to economic opportunity, when it comes to fair treatment, equitable treatment, access to quality education, and those are issues that affect Black Muslims, but all Black Americans. And it's important that when we uplift everyone, that's the importance of, you know, when you uplift a group, you uplift everyone. So inshallah, we'll start to see progress on the national level when it comes to those two items. And then similar to other problems that other minority groups are facing, or other groups are facing in general, access to quality healthcare, making sure that continues to be affordable. When we see inflation rising, you know, that impacts Muslim people, that impacts our communities. And especially, I feel like sometimes it's a lot more difficult for immigrant communities who might have come here, immigrated here in the late 1980s and, you know, in the 1980s, 1990s, 1970s, and seeing these rises in costs. Maybe they learned how to save a different way, and they didn't expect this kind of increase in inflation and costs. And you know, there's only so much of that can be controlled. It's very complicated, but providing support and relief when we can, and when it's feasible to do so to everyone, and you know, inshallah, that helps out Muslim Americans in our community.
Oh, great. Do you see any conflict between the American values and the interest of the Muslim Americans in the United States?
I think certainly in some issues, I do think it's important to note that Muslims aren't necessarily a solid voting bloc. Like, they don't necessarily vote one way or another. And I think it was very interesting to see that after Trump, seeing that some Muslims are very much in support of him and we're not. And even in the conversations that I have with people day to day, Muslim folks, it's mixed because they don't necessarily feel like one political party is checking all their boxes. And I think that's the kind of system we have in America, where it is a largely two-party system. It's difficult for independent parties to come through. But I think lots of Muslims gravitate towards the political party that checks most of their boxes. And for many of the people that I talk to, it ends up being the Democratic Party, just because of the focus on healthcare, of the focus on taking care of people in the community, not just abandoning them. And when it comes to gun safety, when it comes to fair taxation, and I think sometimes more economical issues bring people towards the Republican side. But I would like to say that it is a big misconception that Republicans are more efficient with tax dollars, because that's just not the case. In Illinois, we've had a history of Republican governors who have driven Illinois into the ground because they wanted it to seem like their economic outlook was positive, but in fact, they just weren't paying debts that we had to pay, like, paying into our pension fund, and that destroyed the economy. Most recently, in the past 2 years, we were able to get 6 credit upgrades, which was huge for Illinois because we had not gotten a single credit upgrade for 20 years, for the past 20 years, and that was done under Democratic leadership. That was done under J.B. Pritzker and the controller, Susana Mendoza. So it's very important to note that, Democrats are good with the economy, especially here in Illinois. And sometimes we fall into these traps of trusting, some folks that say that they'll save us money, but in fact, the people 20 years ago, truthfully, I've been a little angry about this. As a young 23-year-old, they've hurt Illinois. They've made some of these problems so difficult to fix. And now that I'm going to be in the state legislature and I'm kind of examining these problems, I'm like, why did that person not pay into our pension fund 20 years ago so we could have avoided all these problems, so we could have funded education better? There are small things like that where I think the Muslim community doesn't fall either which way, but we pick the lane that we feel most closely aligns with us.
I see. As a young woman with this achievement, you became a great role model for especially the young American Muslim girls. What are your advices to them?
My advice, I would say, first of all, it's a big honor to even be considered a role model. I remember when I was 15, or maybe even younger, I was in middle school, so 6th and 7th grade. I went on the computer to Google if we had a Muslim congressperson, and that's where I discovered Keith Ellison, and that meant so much to me in that moment. I didn't know anything about Brother Keith. I did not know who he was, where he was from, but just because he was Muslim, it meant so much. So it's so nice to be able to, serve as a small part of that role for maybe future generations, inshallah. But I would say, start with good intentions. I think with good intentions, whichever field you want to pave your way in, whatever you want to do in your future, as long as it's rooted in compassion and kindness and the principles of our faith, of giving, of caring for the elderly, of taking care of your neighbors, of giving zakat, of giving charity. If you approach anything in life with those kinds of good intentions, I truly believe that it will either happen or it won't happen because it wasn't good for you. And, subhanAllah, many times during this race when I was like, it was tough. It was emotionally draining. It was not easy. It was physically tolling, knocking on 20,000 doors. But if I woke up and had, approached it with a good intentions, good mindset, then it would, then I'd make it through the day and I'd go on to the next day. And I very much believe that, having that pureness in your heart is ideal to pursuing your dreams, whatever it may be. And pursue your dreams, talk to your parents, help them figure out how they can support you, talk to your community, but chase after your dreams, even if they seem kind of big, because you can do it.
Great. Before closing, would you like to add anything?
I would just like to say thank you so much for having me on this show. It is so wonderful to be not only throughout this process to win as a young Muslim American, as a young Indian American, as a young person, but it's so exciting for me to meet so many people along the way throughout the campaign, throughout this new role that I'm taking on in the state legislature. But there are so many folks that are doing such important work like yourself to uplift people like me and to inform people about what's happening here. And I just want to thank you so much for having me on and for giving me this opportunity and for rescheduling when I was feeling a bit sick. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so very much. Dear viewers, we'll see you at the next episode.